Welcome to Getting Intimate with Intimacy. I am Jamie London Wollberg. My pronouns are he, they.
I'm Jayne, she, her.
And I am May. This is a space for deep exploration of the mind, body, and soul connection.
Getting Intimate with Intimacy covers consistent multimedia content spanning all forms of intimacy, from sexual to intellectual, and everything in between.
Our content is created for all beings, bodies, and abilities, age 18 and up.
And it can be enjoyed on YouTube as well as OnlyFans and InsightTimer. The links will be in the description on for our live streams.
We're really looking forward to experiencing the infinite layers of intimacy with you.
And remember, intimacy starts within.
Namaste, everyone. How are we doing? Welcome back to Getting Intimate with Intimacy. And we are here for episode 10. Yes. Such a great number. Yes. Ending beginnings. And we are here for what is creative intimacy. I am Jamie, he, they pronouns.
I'm Jayne, she, her, Faye.
And I am May.
And we are ready to get into it. If you are here, let us know where you're tuning in from and let us know what creative intimacy means to you. Which brings me to question number 1. KJ, what does creative intimacy mean to you? How does creative intimacy show up in your life?
Well, Jamie, it is showing up in my life in some wonderful new ways, such as what we're doing right now. That's my new favorite is collaboration. Is a form of creative intimacy that I am having so much fun with. Not only with you, but also I have some other collabs, right, going on, taking shape, and I'm loving it because it does get my creative juices flowing, right? When you have a focused intention, you're bringing more than one person together, the energy is contagious. And when it's something that, you're passionate about, which is hopefully why we start a project in the first place, right? We are creating from this place of inspiration, right? And if we talk about intimacy starting within, we've all shared pieces of our stories, and we have much more about our personal journeys, right? Of tapping into ourselves, our intimacy with ourselves on all the different levels, right? Spiritually, intellectually, physically, and that includes creatively. Jamie and I have talked at great length about, the concept of self-love and blocking creativity if you're not in that space of pouring into yourself on a regular basis and knowing and loving yourself and building yourself up. That's when you can express best, right? So creative expression comes from that flow of feeling in alignment and feeling that spark and that desire to put something out there creatively into the world. So the collaborations are one beautiful way that creativity is showing up. I think I'm going to talk about some other stuff a little bit later when we answer other questions, but circling back to what does creative intimacy mean to me, just kind of that's what I'm talking about. Because I have personally found it difficult to tap into that sense of creativity, right? When I'm feeling stagnant or blocked emotionally, if I'm in my feelings, if I'm processing, something big, it might not be the time to dive into a creative project, right? We've talked about life is cyclical. Things come and flow, right? Our bodies have cycles that we get to honor and experience. And so does life, right? Life flows, has different currents and tides, and it's always, we've talked about, coming back into alignment, coming back to center, coming back to me. And when I'm feeling at my best is when...
Who is she frozen? Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, no, I got you. I think it was for you, May. Yeah.
Okay, just 3 seconds. Go on.
No worries. So, that's for me. I know that I do best when I feel best. That's pretty standard, right? When I'm feeling good about myself, when I'm feeling resourced and comfortable, on some level. And it doesn't have to be at 100% all the time. You can be creative at 20% sometimes. You can be creative at 80%, right? And just again, giving grace for it to look and show up differently as well, like when you're in these different cycles. So that's something that's I've been, working on embracing. And that I think for me personally, it's been like kind of brewing. I've been processing some big emotional things. I've been in a cycle of shedding and rebirth, right? And I know that when you come out on the other side, then it's a fresh wave of creativity, which is, I guess, kind of what I'm feeling right now. And again, not maybe like with the 100% floodgates open, but definitely a lot more creatively inspired recently.
I love
Wonderful.
that. I mean, think about every great artist, right? They create from the extremes of their pain and the extremes of their love, right?
All sorts of emotions, yeah.
Yes, May, how does this resonate for you? What does creative intimacy mean to you, and how does it show up in your life?
So just in relation with what you were about to say, I was just reflecting on how in the past I have been creating from a place of frustration or sadness or anger. And I was just realizing that at those moments, my creations were as beautiful as through any other emotions, but I most times didn't want to share those creations. Whereas when I'm more on a happy, kind of joyful energy, I feel more like sharing my creation. So there's nothing wrong or right about that. It's just something that I have just realized right now, and it may be a good advice for people just to not stop creating because they don't feel inside in a good place. Maybe you don't want to share your creations, but that shouldn't stop you from creating. And another reflection was like I can see two aspects or two branches of creative energy, which can be expressed through play, just being creative and then expressing that through play, or so that doesn't necessarily has to take a physical form, but there is some expression of you, obviously, true expression of you, and then like proper literal creation where you're building, making something, whether it's a poem, it can be digitally or with your hands or through any other kind of material. And so in both ways you can honor the creative energy that is flowing through you. To me, is probably the purest form of energy that comes through us. But because we have been socially conditioned to not tap into the core energy of who we are, which is creative in essence, some people have this belief that there are creative people and non-creative people. All of us are creative and creators. But if you have never been in intimate with yourself to identify and feel this energy for most people is very, very subtle. So you need to sit with yourself to actually feel into it, because when it's really pure, it's not copying anything outside of you. So it may be challenging for you to understand what is demanding from you, and also that you are open enough inside to receive this new creation that wants to come through you. So it actually is very challenging if you are not, you haven't practiced much self-knowledge, and then also self love when it comes to bringing it out. For most children, for example, I think they never have the right space in their lives to tap into this energy, and also have the the teaching that they are creators and that they can create whatever they want in this world, because that is completely out of the question for most of them. We don't see so many humans creating extraordinary things, and we're so scared also of the judgment. But this energy, if you allow it inside to express itself, that's, I think, where you change from living an ordinary life to living an extraordinary life, because you're really going to be channeling amazing stuff.
I'm loving this conversation.
Love it. I love
I'm
it.
literally so turned up and on right now. It's wild because like I literally feel like we are so both of you have said so much that I like as I'm listening to both of you, I'm like, and that and that and that and that and like these are things that are key to me. And I'm just like, I'm gonna start with that purity aspect that you were mentioning, May,
Go.
because like that was even just literally like maybe 2 seconds before you said it in my mind, I was like, oh,
It
it's
came to
so
you. Okay.
pure. I was literally preparing what I was going to say. Oh, I love it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, right now, even in this moment, right, as KJ said, like this is so deep in creative intimacy, and as you can tell, like I'm fired up because creative intimacy is like very core to who I am, and anybody who actually knows me deeply knows that Jamie and creative intimacy and creator are like deeply interwoven. And as May said, we're all creators and we all have the capacity to be creative. We are co-creating in our existence moment to moment on so many levels. Let's scale back for a second, or rather scale up but backtrack a second, getting into the core of what creative intimacy means to me. It is purely the intentional and subconscious creation from and of yourself, within yourself, and within and of others. So what that looks like a lot of the time is collaboration, whether you're collaborating with your higher self, whether you're collaborating with your spiritual team, whether you're collaborating with someone else, but it's really just that pure essence of bringing something that didn't exist to something that does, right? That we perceive that exists. And I'm someone who believes that everything has already been created within consciousness. Every thought we've had is not original. It feels original. It is an original essence of that energy that we're bringing in that moment. And so therefore we do create things that are ours, but from the greater um zoomed out perspective, like we are doing this all together. And the more that we think about doing it together, even when we're in our self creative intimacy, really just creates an incredible expansion. So the way that intimacy shows up in my life in terms of creative intimacy is everywhere, in every moment. I really focus on intentional intimacy. When I said subconscious creative intimacy, what I'm talking about are those beautiful moments that just come up by surprise, right? Sometimes we don't mean to create something or co-create something, and then we do, and we're like, "Whoa, that felt awesome." Like I felt that creative intimacy, and so that's not always intentional. Intentional creative intimacy is like how the three of us came here, and we pre-decided like we are doing the Getting Intimate with Intimacy podcast. This is our project. We're creating it. We're coming on the stream to talk about these things, but it shows up for me all the time. And I've really found myself to be in some of the highest states of discovery of myself, to what May was speaking, the eroticism. I really just feel most myself when I am being creative intimate and creatively intimate. And what I have realized in probably the last year is maybe a year and a half that I started to really recognize that creative intimacy was its own unique intimacy frequency and experience. I have come to realize that is like top tier of if we're looking at all the types of intimacy, of which there are so many, right, that we're just scratching the surface on. Creative intimacy is very high up there for me in terms of priority, and something I put a lot of my intention into. I am constantly creating within manifestation. I am
True.
constantly writing. I am creating content. I am collaborating on like 6 different projects right now. it's my thing. It's really anybody's, and this is not to take away from it being everyone's thing, but like, this is my thing.
It's major for you, yes.
It's major. And so I couldn't be more excited. And honestly, I feel like in a way I'm realizing now more than ever how much that's a thing. And I think that realization right now is going to change my life in ways that will unfold and are unfolding at this point. KJ, what are some tools that you utilize when you're creatively intimate, whether with yourself and or with others?
Yeah, no, I actually love this question, because it what I've been thinking about is what May said about like the non-tangible things. And so when I think about creative intimacy tools, I think of like attitudes and mindsets and practices that aid me, that are not, say, something you can pick up off the table, right? Like childlike wonder, being able to be in touch with my inner child has greatly affected my ability to be creative, to create, right? To explore, because it's that childlike wonder of exploration. I'm going to try this. Sounds like a good idea in my head. Like, let's see what happens, right? When I utilize these material things, whether that's a paintbrush, whether it's a pen, the computer, right? Those are the material things that we use creatively. Our voice, I had to do a lot of throat chakra healing to embrace my singing voice, which I love. I've always loved music and loved to sing, but I had like severe complexes around my inadequacy of my singing voice, right? But that's a built-in part of my creative abilities, right? That's literally, you can't get more intimate, right? So I've had to, I like utilizing childlike wonder. I like, this any of my self-love, practices. I directly influence the creative aspect, for sure. So when, again, I'm paying attention to my body, I'm taking my regular bath, like we talked about recently. I'm singing. That's practicing my instrument, right? That's when I listen to the music that I like, when I listen to a different variety of things and listen for the pitches and the ranges that I like to sing in, right? And that I can express and that I can practice and stretch myself, my vocal cords. But also then another really important tool is releasing judgment. Self-judgment. That's also goes into the next question of my goals, because that's something that I'm working on for myself, is releasing that concept of comparison, right? Comparison to others, comparison of where I ought to be on this journey, right? Or whatever it is. And for me, that specifically is relating to painting. I've been, felt called and drawn to painting for quite a while, but I've never had any formal training in it. I've gone to, your the classes where there's an instructor and they run you through the whole thing. I've done that on my own. I've done it with friends, with partners. But then I freeze up when it's just me with some canvas and some paints, or I get hypercritical, or I physically tense up, and then I realize later that I need to like let that go and just look at it as a process and as a creative exploration. So those are kind of what was coming up for me.
I love what you said about in terms of the reflection of, being judgmental with yourself and how you're freeing yourself now. But also you mentioned as well, like how you've shared these experiences with yourself, with partners, and with friends, and like creating with friends and having new creative experiences is so bonding, right? That's so deeply intimate. May, what are some tools that you are utilizing for creative intimacy? What do you like?
Thank you, Katie, for sharing your tools and the good advice that you have offered. I think I wanted to mention before, but got lost with some of our previous reflections, that the creative energy is maybe the highest transmutation that actually happens from the metaphysical to the physical. Even more, for example, in a way of you being a vehicle to create something, because when we are creating babies, the major job is done through our bodies. We just need to have the intention to put the sperm and somewhere, and but mostly it's the body who's doing the creation job, okay? But when we want to bring something into the world that takes a physical form, it goes from absolutely nothing or nowhere, or somewhere in the universe that we don't know where this idea is coming from that we are channeling. We don't exactly know that, but it's somehow asking to come, or is we have the opportunity to channel it and to give it a form. I think we have not, as a society or as a species, reflected enough about this power. We have the power to create wonderful, constructive things for humanity and the planet, and we also have the opportunity to create destructive things, or not to create anything at all, and just be here consuming, which I don't think is the best journey that one should take. Okay, and having said that, my tools for creative.
Well, yes, but now I really need to say something to respond to that,
Okay.
because now you're reminding me of something that I forgot to respond to, something that you said earlier, which ties right into what you were saying right now, which is the fact that, yes, because, as you pointed out, from young children in our past of humanity, that has been stripped from a lot of us. I mean, even think about like art class. Like, I used to love art class, but there were other people that I would notice who would be really stressed about art class because their parents are pressuring them on grades in art, or they want to be an artist and they think like they're 5 years old, and if they can't create, this thing. Meanwhile, nowadays, right, we have things like TikTok, and there's like 5 and 7-year-olds that are making like millions of dollars on TikTok and YouTube from creating things. And I don't know what pressures or not they may be experiencing, but I do think that there is a shift, but it's coming from the education system, and it's coming from these generational narratives of what has to be and what we become. And a lot of these cultures, they push aside creative energy, right? They decide this is not a valid career, right? How many times do we hear this in different cultures, right? You're supposed to be a lawyer, you're supposed to be a doctor, you're supposed to be this, you're supposed to be that. And they invalidate this as something it can't be. It's not going to be something that's going to sustain you. It's not going to be something that's going to help provide you what you need to live, which we know now more than ever is not true. So I had to point that out because of what you just said. It all tied together. But yes, your tools.
So yeah, and also, like, we are improving, but yet even in an art class, maybe the child is not appropriate for the child to be sitting on a chair and at a table, and not having enough space. For me, that would be the case, to figure out my energy and have enough space to express myself, or to explore around with lots of materials and lots of things to see where I am drawn to. Because if you sit me on a chair and just give me a few pencil and colors and this and that, I may not come up with the greatest thing that can come through me, because I think that maybe all these materials, only I should be drawing something, and that may not be my gift, or I may be feeling very limited. Like, I'm right now just thinking of an extreme example of someone that I think it's admirable, is a woman who has been creating jewelry through sperm, for example. Can you do you know how much courage it takes to channel that, and to say at some point, okay, I'm going to start doing this? Because it can be an idea in your mind, but having the courage to, I'm just going to give it a form, and I'm just going to go out there and sell these products and sell these things, and she's selling them. So do you think that anyone at school, any teacher, could ever share something that, well, not because of the sperm maybe, but something as extraordinary as that? No, we're not encouraged to create like wild things. And this is where I would love all of us to be. But anyway, I think my tools are definitely feeling safe. So as compared to what we said before, we don't need to have any particular emotion to be creating, but I think feeling safe is actually the basic feeling. Because if your nervous system, you are not really feeling safe, I hardly think that pure creative energy can actually flow through you, because you're in a survival mode. So feeling safe would be like the basic, and taking time and space to tap into this creative energy that is unique to you. Even if you're doing something similar to another human being, like writing a poem or whatever, it's never going to be the same. And you really want to be truly connected to who you truly are, to know, to challenge it in the purest way. Even if it sounds too radical, to whatever, to your human ego, to dare to tap into it and channel it in the purest form. So time and space, that it's your responsibility, our responsibility to find. It's not going to happen out of nowhere, that um, you're going to receive great inspiration in general. If you're not used to connecting with this part of you, so to speak, or your core energy, actually.
Can I respond, May?
Sure.
So it just occurred to me while we are talking a couple of things. First of all, what just occurred to me was that we're talking about, us having these gifts, being able to channel creative expression, and then also talking about children. And not all of us here, or anybody that may be listening, had the same experience as a child, right? Yes, on a societal level, on many cultures, it has been stripped away, as Maria said. Like, we are not given, like, hey, okay, try 10 things and see what you like to do. Cool, right? Or me as a child, when I asked to do creative things I wanted to do, like dancing, and got shut down, right? Like, okay, so that is our experience. That's our lived experience. That's happening a lot of the time. And it's never too late to start over or to try something new, right? Again, that's not a huge part of our cultural learning either, right? A lot of us have come to this realization much more recently in adulthood, right? Or being able to, like I said, tap into that childlike wonder. We get to do that as adults and say, hey, if I was 7-year-old Katie, what would I want to do? What would I want to try with paint, right? Something like that. And therefore, again, talking about all that goes into creating that place of safety and love for ourselves, right? So when you're gifting yourself that self-love, that self-composure, that foundation, as we've talked about, that's a gift. It's not even just that we're sharing our gifts with others. We are giving ourselves the gift of creative expression. That one hit home for me just a couple of minutes ago, because really that's what it is. Every time that I make time, to tap in, like May said, and to be like, okay, I'm gonna do this thing just for the heck of it, right? For creating, because I want to try. We've also all expressed, like, that's when we feel our best, right? When we feel at top tier levels, happy, joyful, we want to create, we want to share it. That's the purest expression that can come through, and that's a gift for us to even be able to experience that creation, right?
100%. I love that breakthrough for you. May,
Yes,
what are
and
the other tools?
I just wanted to add to that, Katie, because I have been reflecting on it as well. How do I feel mainly when I create something, in the process of creating and after I have created? Powerful. This is what we're lacking the most, I think, in society, and where it would be a complete shift in relation to our governments, for example, and the kind of social structures that we have, because we haven't really tapped into our core creative essence. Because you feel, I think I'm not the only one, if you really connect with it, that you feel powerful. It doesn't matter that what you created, if you're not judgmental, like Katie said before, which is super important. If you're not judgmental, just the fact that you created something and you look at it and it's just reviving. I mean, for me, it's elevating immediately, and I feel powerful, and I feel proud of myself. And most of the times, I want to share it with the world. So I think the tools is mainly space, time, nurturing the connection with the higher self, who is constantly trying to bring into the physical world things for you to express and to give it a physical form.
I think what's
Inner
really
space,
sorry,
space.
so,
Yeah.
sorry,
And outer space, inner and outer space. I'm done.
yeah. I
Dear.
what's very interesting is, KJ, I feel like you started by talking about material things and ended up with a very spiritual breakthrough. And then May, I feel like you started with very spiritual things, bringing it into the physical. And so it has me thinking, a lot, because again, like when we think of tools, we often do think of, it's contextually, of course, but we often think of what's physical, what's tangible, right? The paintbrush, the pen, the hammer, this and the other. Something that I can't stop thinking about, May, that you said was about safety. And I think that's fascinating to me, because there's a part of me that absolutely sees how, especially in the initial creation, the concept and the, as you said, the courage of being able to create something and to feel strong enough in that to, I am creating it, here it is, and going from idea to actually bringing it into that manifestation, I think is super, super important. And we often create immeasurable amounts when we don't feel safe in order to bring ourselves back into safety. When we think about the human, I don't want to phrase this very, very delicately. The human experience and actions around war. During wartime, humanity creates sometimes more than ever, or we can perceive that, right? If we think, when we go back into history of World War One, World War Two, and we strip away all of the meaning of things, what you are left with is creation. Creation of emotion, creation of tools, creation of weapons, creation of jobs, creation
Of
of,
narratives.
exactly, narratives and beliefs. So what I think we can take from all of this, what I'm taking from this, is remembering that, like with all the types of intimacy that we've discussed before, we've always brought up some sort of responsibility, right? The ability to respond, the consent, and making sure that we are incredibly intentional when we are creating. This is not to say don't create something, don't create a song that's sad. Of course, create a song that's sad. That's your way of expressing. And guess what? A lot of people need that in order to release. There's a lot of people that have a lot of release from answering and acknowledging and addressing their own emotions and their own experiences when they're feeling stagnant, maybe even, and listen to a sad song, right? And so I actually just think it's again, it's about that intention of, what am I creating? Who am I creating for? Why am I creating this? What is going to happen as a result of this creation? And this isn't to take away from just create for the expression, or what's the saying, actually? It's like creating for the sake of creating, right? Is beautiful also, right? Because a lot of times, in order for us to get out of that stagnancy, we just have to create. I actually just recently finished listening to The Artist's Way, which talks a lot about this concept around two different main actions, which I already do in my own way, which is, one is morning pages, which is a stream of consciousness writing, 3 pages, never looking at it again, no excuses, no BS. You're doing that every
Mm-hmm.
rising in order to unclog all the things. And over time, it helps you to create. And then artist dates, not like a date on the calendar, but like a date as in like Valentine's Day, where every week you are creating intentional time
Absolutely.
for you to
Mm-hmm.
create. And for me, that was the accountability breakthrough that I needed when I was listening to that book, which I highly recommend to anybody, artist or not. Don't allow the word artist's way to stop you. Could be also the creator's way, right? We're all artists in our own way. That's one of the things you learn in the book. And one of the things of accountability that I needed was, okay, I need to get back, because I used to do that. I used to do that where I would be like, okay, every week I'm going to spend 1 to 2 hours watercoloring. And what was wild is this book came into my life when I was coming back into this intention of watercoloring. And I was like going through these phases of, I am going to watercolor again and getting and sometimes it's sort of a slow cog, right? First, I had to think about it for a while, for 1 week. And then the next week, I was like, okay, here's my plan. I'm doing it this day at this amount of time, and I'm going to use these types of materials and everything. And now you need to go look back in your book as to where you left off in the watercoloring. And then I set my goal of watercoloring. And now I'm actually starting to watercolor, right? And so we go through these phases.
Congratulations, dear. And you're so good at doing it intuitively. Like we have enjoyed your drawings or designs or however you call them, and it's wonderful how you flow with it.
Thank you. And that's the thing about a tool, right? I believe that a tool is something that helps us to flow. It helps us to bring that idea into that creation. And whether you're talking about energetically having the space and feeling safe, or whether you're inspired from an urgency, or whether you're doing it for relaxation and connection and collaboration, like KJ was talking about and I was talking about,
Oh, yeah.
these tools there are so many now, right? We have the technology became tools for creativity
Mhm.
not that long ago. Like,
Right.
most likely, if you're watching this, I bet my bottom dollar that it's happened within the second sort of half of your life, because we have this box for 21 and older, right? So a lot of
From the
us did not.
21st century, mainly, at least technologically.
Yeah.
Yes, but I'm referring to even more so of like how Canva, right? Like,
Oh,
most
yeah.
people know what Canva is.
10
I
years.
use Canva for creative intimacy all the time. It's a tool that I can rely on constantly. Whereas I have some, and then there's AI now and all of the creative intimacy around that. People even developing breakthroughs and awareness and intimacy with AI, right? There is mind blowing tools. Other tools that I love for creative intimacy, right? We talked previously in another episode about when we're talking about sexual intimacy, how there are so many different tools that we can bring in. And oftentimes, what is necessary to go from idea to creation within that tool is discussion, right? When I pick up a paintbrush, I'm going to have a discussion with myself and the energy that I'm feeling, right? I'm doing this theoretically because I'm inspired, right? I desire to do it. So I'm here with this brush and it's like, okay, what are we here to create? Is it a vision that I had? Is it that I'm just like, I'm going to let the paintbrush go and flow and put some music on and like not give a shit? Like, is it something that I'm creating for someone? And so I have this intention of, I want this message, this feeling, this
Mhm.
healing to come
Mhm.
into this. There are so many different tools. Figure out what tools resonate with you in the moments that they resonate with you. And, blast off. And some tools you may leave behind, some tools to upgrade, right? Like, technological tools like Canva, they do constant updates. Like, I feel like every other week they're sending me an email like, hey, we're doing a webinar to show you all the cool new things that we have in this tool of Canva for you. And it's like, every time we find a tool, we find a new way to express. And so if we can take something from tools, it's tools are about resources. We don't always have access to the resources. When we do, have gratitude for them and find our way to connect with them and learn how that tool works for you, because that tool may be different for someone else. So let's move forward into our intention, right? We recently had our first discussion on our creative goals over our creative goals, our our intimacy goals for 2025. That was our last episode. And so now let's focus in on what are your creative intimacy goals. So KJ, what are creative intimacy goals for you right now?
Yes. So I loved everything that you were saying, Jamie, about your watercoloring journey, right? And of saying, hey, I'm going to bring this into creation. I'm going to start this habit. You had all the planning phases and now you're doing the thing. And that's wonderful. I've been kind of in a percolating mode over the winter. Appropriate, right? Winter. Yeah, thinking over a lot of things and thinking about what my goals are. And so I'd just like to get more consistent. I would love to get more consistent with writing a little bit every day, whether it's journaling or the brain dump, like you said, in the morning. Yeah, getting more consistent and at making the artist date that you talked about, of scheduling that time for myself, even just a little bit. There's, of course, because classic me and ADHD, there's about 10 different things that I am interested in, sure. And I have things available, right? Readily and easily accessible, like my diamond art, which isn't necessarily, it's a different kind of co-creating, right? This is all very set up and arranged. I get to pick up the dots and, do it myself in a pattern, which for me still stimulates creativity because it gets me into kind of the Zen mode, or what might say meditation, right? I get into kind of that more meditative mode, and then other ideas can drop in because I've cleared my brain, right? And I'm just enjoying my music and the process of what I'm doing and the colors. So for me, that's a great tool that I know I have, and I'd like to intentionally schedule in time. I'd love to. Another thing that fuels me creatively is music. So I'd like to experience more live music and support my girlfriend and her band and go see their performance, which will be coming up soon, and supporting other people's creative endeavors, because that inspires me also. Still releasing control and judgment, like when I am in the creative mode, when it is something like painting and writing, like to not be critical of myself.
I love that for you. I'm holding the space. It is happening.
Yes.
And also, I have an idea in my mind of what this diamond art is, but I'm not entirely positive. But if it is what I think it is, then I definitely want to be doing this with you. So let's talk about that off our stream. May, what are some of your creative intimacy goals?
So also in relation with watercoloring, I had like a funny... Last year, I took painting classes, and the teacher suggested that I should start with watercolor. And I struggled in the beginning with this technique because I wanted colors to look in a particular way in my drawings. And then I was not reaching that. So I got myself into lovely arguments with the teacher. Like, I want this kind of color and to look this way. Why is it not happening? And she said, this is a process, dear. This is a journey with this technique in particular. Like, you don't know exactly how it's going to look, and you interact with the drawing and the colors in this way. And I'm like, no, but I want it to look this way. And in the end, after several classes, I got to obviously master the technique a little bit and understand what was going on and flowing more with it. Then it may not be my ideal way of painting. That is another fact, but definitely any creative process, it can show you something, and it can open you a little bit more to find new ways of expressing yourself, and also where you're limiting yourself as well, where you are preconceived or predetermined to do things in a very particular way and not open into wider inspiration. My goals are somewhat similar to Katie's in the way that I want to be more disciplined about the time that I invest to sit with myself to see what is coming through as to what the soul wants me to do in terms of creation. And then being very committed to creating things on a physical level that has been quite challenging for me throughout my life, not in terms of how what I think or feel about that I could create, but actually going through, especially for the things that take very quite some time to create, long-term creations. That's where I struggle. And there is one, just like a book, that I really want to get myself into accomplishing at some point. So yeah, more commitment from a place of joy, not commitment from a place of pressure.
Yes,
Love
love
that.
that. Oh. We will see. That's how you know. That's how you know. And that's right. That's that that beautiful moment right now was a subconscious, creative, intimate moment, which shows how much creative intimacy we have built together, right? And
Absolutely.
and that feels good. Like we're all smiling. I feel like warm and joyful and happy and like these are things that are so possible for us. And you know it's cliche but and true to say, like, and the way the world is right now, right, like
Mhm.
it's valuable to really lean in to creative intimacy. It brings an incredible amount of joy and not from that pressure. And I think, May, like, that is such a key thing that we all spoke about in
Mm.
this, I keep wanting to say in this session. It's so
Or
funny.
other episodes as well. Yeah.
Yes, in this episode. In a way, sometimes this feels like group therapy. And but which I don't typically resonate with group therapy at all, except for when it's us, which again just shows our creative intimacy levels because we're on each other's pages. Yeah, my goals I feel like are layered. What I mean by that is I have the goals that I have within myself for pure play in my personal, and then the play in my professional play, right? Right
Mhm.
now I have 6 projects, which
Mhm.
feel to me like 6 children that I am raising in creative intimacy with the co-parents that I am creating these with. And then the long larger game, which I think I may have talked about in another time before,
But
but
the
it's
6 projects, but all co-creations, or some of them are just you
no,
mixed.
those are all the co-creations I'm doing
Okay,
right
six
now.
co-creations already.
That's
Okay.
outside of my
Okay.
individual stuff. And then, right, the Wake and Wellness Centers for leaders who love in their families, like that is my larger goal, which is literally like the ultimate creation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so right now I have creative goals for each of these collaborations, but then I also have
Nice.
the larger goals of what is it that I want to see by the end of this, what feels to me like the end of the year, right?
Okay.
What is the progress that I desire to have? And last year was a lot of learning about relationships and figuring things out. This and planting seeds. This year feels like a lot of the sowing of the seeds and starting to reap a little bit of things, but really
Uh-huh.
building that consistency and doing all of it through joy. Like at the moment that I don't experience joy, it's not like, oh, I don't want to do that paperwork for that thing that I really love. It's like if I feel like something is sucking the life out of me, then something needs to change. And if those things are changing and it doesn't land, then that is ready to be released, right? And understanding that it's okay for us to complete a creation, even if it doesn't feel like it's fully completed, to honor and recognize that it's acceptable to have that creation go only part way. So for me, if I were to sum up what some of those goals are, is to continue to create on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
to continue to create from a sense of joy and for that joy constantly, and to stop allowing for excuses when I want to create, but I'm like, oh, well, I have XYZ things to do. Well, this is just my artist state is just as important as everything else. And while I am someone who is creating constantly within all of these things, there is a very big discernment between professional play creation and, creation for just play in general. And I wouldn't say that it's that there's pressure per se. That's not the language I want to use for that professional play. I would say that um,
Sure.
there feels like a more of a timeliness and therefore an intention. When I'm creating for something from joy, it's like, okay, I'm creating for the sake of creation and just that allow for that joy, and that's all there is. There is no expectation. There is nothing. When I'm creating with a desire professionally, my goals are not about expectation, but there is a momentum forward, right? There is something I'm looking specific
Focus and
that I want.
structure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Right. Like we have our creative intimacy goals for getting in with intimacy. And one
Yes.
of those that we are consistent with is meeting weekly and doing this live stream and bringing more intimacy to you. And we will continue to be doing that. Without further ado, KJ, would you go through the comments and let's see what people had to say?
Let's. Yay, Lee.
Hi.
We love you.
Oh, yes. Biggest fan club, obvi. Katrina commented, heartbreak is great for writing and processing at the same time.
Mhm.
And I'm pretty sure she had to go back to work, so she's not here at this moment. Hopefully you catch this on the replay. But absolutely true. This actually reminds me of what May was saying prior about, creating in different moods, right? When you're having different feelings. And some people, it's different. For musicians, obviously, they immediately alchemize their feelings, right, into creation. That's kind of what their jam, literally, right, is taking that's their way of processing. That's totally valid. And then they might share it at different times, right? Or for May, you said, when I create in these moods, I don't want to share it. But I think for some artists that changes and shifts, right? Maybe they do create during a painful time period, and that's not going to come out right away. But later, once that's helped their process, right? And that's helped them move through healing to the next moment, right? Then they can say, these are really powerful and could help somebody else. And now is time to bring out these creations.
Exactly. After some addition or whatever, you think, yeah, this is ready to go out.
Right. And then Rev Lee says, one of my favorite spiritual principles is that chaos always precedes the creation of something entirely new. We all love that. Yes.
Yeah, it's the unknown right now, right? It's the Aquarian age I think we even started. I don't know. Maybe that was another timeline. I feel like I started saying that at the beginning of this. But the point is that it is the unknown, right? And that's what we're creating from, as May was speaking to.
And also that's something that I think is related to something that you mentioned before, Jamie, about how much important it is for you creation and new things, new experiences. I think you mentioned in the previous episode that you're someone that you value having new experiences with people and all these things. To me, new things is something that turns me on a soul level, and it can turn me on a physical level as well. I'm someone who's always open to see new things, new ways of creating, new creation, new ways of connecting with humans. Like, new things turn me on, honestly.
Yeah, 1000%.
I really appreciate them, and I really appreciate any human being who has the courage to bring new stuff into this world.
Yes. Which brings up our next, that's a great segue, May. Good job. Next week, we are going to be answering this beautiful question about courage, right? We're acknowledging that courage is a huge part of creative intimacy. So we are going to touch upon how can courage help build intimacy? We're going to answer that question next week. Remember, this is our new day and time. So it's going to be Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. MST, 1:30 p.m. EST, 7:30 p.m. CET. and we are so excited to continue to connect with you. And remember, please follow, subscribe, turn on the little bell so that the
Comment,
notifications
yeah.
are going on, comment, share this with someone who you feel would benefit. Find us on OnlyFans. We're going to start to roll out even more content there. Obviously, this is YouTube. We want to put on things on InsightTimer soon. So keep on staying in touch with us. And if you want us to speak, to coach, to do whatever the case may be to support you in your world, reach out. This is something that we are here for and want to offer.
Final quick comment. Lee is reminding us poets as well channel various moods. Yes, all of the creative.
Absolutely.
1000%. And remember, intimacy starts
within.
We love you unconditionally. Namaste, everyone.
We love you. We'll see you soon.